Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, a podcast that releases a big content update every 8 to 12 months. I'm one of your hosts, Steve Watts.
And I'm your other host, Brian Carr. Steviekins. Today's Chattycast brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/chattycast.
You sort of accented the W's there.
www.
Every week.
You follow the proper phonetic pronunciation of that letter. You're supposed to actually say W.
W, yeah. I dare question your professional radio experience.
You should not. I am an expert at diction.
So every week here on the every week on the Chattycast, we pick a big topic, post about it on the Shack News Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments fueling the discussion, hence Chattycast. Today's guest, a woman who finally breaks our seemingly endless stream of dudes, Cassidy Moser.
Good morning from the West Coast.
Yeah, she's in the Aussie slot of having to get up in the morning for it. And I guess Asif too, but Asif I think is up in the morning anyway. But Cassidy, if you don't pay attention to the website, you might have missed. She is one of the new writers that we brought on. She's been bringing out more or less daily features, sometimes more than one in a day, but she's been writing a bunch of features for us. So look for her stuff on Shack News. And so we're happy to have you on, Cassidy. It's good to have.
Very happy. Welcome.
Good to be on.
Good to have someone who isn't an Asif.
We love Asif.
We love Asif, but you need variety. Come on.
It's understandable. It's understandable.
Yeah. So this week's topic, we're going to be talking about game expansions. Also, there's been some weird late-breaking news with Nintendo, so we're sort of going to do a split topic. Talk about the Nintendo stuff too, sort of a longer newsy bit section than usual. But before we get to all of that, we're going to talk about what we are playing currently. And Cassidy, as our guest, how about you start us off here? What have you been playing with your free time or your review time or whatever lately?
So, I have been on a quest for the past few years. This is a personal journey. Okay, I don't understand Dark Souls. I have tried. I know people love it.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Wait, is Chatty going to hate us for admitting this?
I'm not knocking it. This is my thing, right? I want to understand it, and I want to like it, and I want to get why people are into it. And I have had the hardest time doing so. Because anytime I've tried it, it hasn't stuck with me. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and she's a huge Dark Souls fan. And she's like, well, your first problem is that you're playing Dark Souls. And I was like, what? She's like, you got to start off with Bloodborne. I'm open to anything. Yeah. I know, right? No, and I'm open to pretty much anything. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's give it a shot. Worst comes to worst, I'll hate it and just step away from it. So I've been playing a little bit of Bloodborne. I'm not good at Bloodborne at all, but I don't actually mind Bloodborne. So that's kind of been what I've been digging through most recently.
So it's like would you say it's more accessible than the Dark Souls games?
Yeah, 100%.
Sort of a primer.
100%. I also kind of cheated because I had her there with me when I first started to play it, so that she was kind of guiding me, telling me oh, you got to go through that gate or whatever, and these guys you have to look out for this. So that helps. Mm-hmm. But it definitely is a lot more approachable. I think having the ability to dodge roll and run around and duck and stuff like that is actually really, it makes a big difference, I think. Granted, I'm not an expert in Dark Souls, so I could be just completely saying, can we swear on here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, swear as much as you fucking want.
Yeah, I might be talking out of my ass, but yeah, I actually dig Bloodborne. I like what Bloodborne has going on with its world too. It's a beautiful game. The animations are really impressive. I really like the gothic horror-y setup of it and everything, and I'm liking it a lot more than I did Dark Souls, and it's giving me reason to consider going back to Dark Souls after I kind of get used to Bloodborne's in and outs a little bit.
Scary times.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Jury's still out on that, but yeah, that's mainly been it for me. I mean, otherwise I ended up reviewing a bunch of games back to back to back, so I got kind of burnt out for a little while. So I haven't really been playing a ton, admittedly.
Yeah. I kind of in the absence of Ozzy. I know I keep mentioning Ozzy, but I'll there's a reason for it this time. In the absence of Ozzy, I kind of accepted more review games at once than I usually would. Mm-hmm. and so I just kind of came off of that, and so now I'm sort of depressurizing from all of those. But my experience with Dark Souls, to go back to Dark Souls for a second, is basically it would be 45 minutes of just dying on the first
Yeah.
anything, and then it'd be like, okay, this is not for me. Oh, you committed to an animation. Well, that animation has to finish, and you're gonna get killed while it's finishing. So you shouldn't have committed to it, you dummy. And
I feel like there's like certain characters you can interrupt their animation, and then there's others that you can't, and it's just like it's interesting to me, and like I love third-person action games like that, so that's why I'm like I should really love this series. Like, what is it that I don't get about it? So that's been one of my continuing quests, and it's I'm weirdly enjoying Bloodborne more than I thought I would, which is cool. Like, I'm excited about that. But, I'm also only a few hours in. Like, I don't know if I'll end up spending hundreds of hours digging into it, plus New Game Plus or anything. But,
It does feel like the game that a lot of people who love it, and I'm just speaking on behalf of other people, so who knows. But people who love it seem to suggest there's like a breakthrough moment where you're like, I get it now. Mm-hmm. And then you start digging on it. But until then, it's kind of you're ramming your head against a brick wall. And
that's kind of what my friend was like too, because she really loves the Dark Souls games, like I said, and she got into it through Bloodborne. Like she did a platinum on Bloodborne and like all this shit, right? And that's why I trust her judgment on this one. And so far, it's I would say that she's we're not best friends yet, Bloodborne and I, but we're getting.
I thought you were your friend who recommended it. I think I've only tried Dark Souls. I haven't tried Bloodborne, so I might actually have to give that a shot and see.
I think it's worth it.
So, Brian.
Yes.
I know one thing you've been playing. What have you been playing?
So I've been dabbling in a lot of things, but I think there's only like one or two things I actually feel like I really need to talk about. I think I didn't talk about Lego Dimensions last week. I guess I could mention that real quick. That's a Lego game.
It's
very much a Lego game. I mean, I think that the toy aspect of it makes it a little more interesting. But it's also kind of the weakest part of the game because, long-time listeners will know that I have like three things I like to talk about. It's baseball, Toys to Life games, and crappy free-to-play iPhone games. Those are like my three things.
Simple pleasures.
That's it. Those are the three things I do. And when I play these Toys to Life games, I like just leaving the figure there. And then if they die, okay, I'll switch them. This one makes you get up, move stuff around. Like, okay, this character's trapped. You need to move them off a different part of the portal. So if you have all your other characters with you, okay, you got to take them off, put this one on. It's very clunky. But the story and the jokes and all that sort of thing, I think, work better than in any other game of this sort up to this point. And like all the pop culture mashup stuff is fun. I have an essay or a pitch I want to work on for why I think this and Disney Infinity are doing so much better than Skylanders right now. It's still sort of half formulated in my head, but I might have to pester Steve into it at some point. But yeah, it's fun. I don't know. I don't regret getting it, but I'm glad that I didn't pay full price for it.
I think one of the reasons the jokes work so well is that it's that, when you see the Lego movie, you see like characters interacting that don't usually interact.
Right.
And that's kind of fun. And this is like that same spirit.
Yeah. I mean, you got Batman fighting the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they cross over like even more than Disney Infinity does, because Disney is like very much walled gardens except for special modes. This is like the story is about the crossover, so they make it all revolve around that.
Can I just say, I feel like Disney Infinity is grossly underappreciated. I love that game.
I agree with you 100%.
Brian loves Disney Infinity.
You are now my favorite person on the show.
Kindred spirits.
I have like publicly argued that is the best Star Wars game currently available, and I stand by that.
It is absolutely the best Star Wars game.
That's true. I still find it awkward. This is like such a minor complaint, but it's something that just bugs the hell out of me. Like, I still find it awkward that triangle is the attack button and not square. So I'm like, have the attack button next to the jump button. My old school brain like cannot process that and that like bugs the hell out of me enough that like I think I probably don't give it as fair a shake as it could.
Oh man, it's so good though.
It's so good. It does like stop it, Steve.
The animations just don't flow as smoothly as if you could jump and attack. Anyway, let's not.
It is beautiful and perfect, and I will not hear you besmirch it any further, sir.
Point is, Lego Dimensions is all about the crossover appeal instead of just being in special modes, and I kind of like that about it.
And that's like the whole remix toy box kind of thing that I think is really interesting, and part of why I think it's doing better than Skylanders.
But
Plus,
having also recently experienced Lego, I think we need to talk about how much of a pain in the ass it is that they're like, okay, now stop playing the game for like an hour or hour and a half to build this portal.
Mm-hmm. And not just the portal, everything else. Okay, so you built the portal, now you've got to build the Batmobile. You've built the Batmobile, now, okay, if you want to use this thing in this level, you have to build it. And that's cute for about 20 seconds. Until you realize that basically all it needs is the chip, or like the base that the vehicle or the character or whatever stands on. Yeah. You never actually have to build anything. And that, to me, is like sort of antithetical to what a Lego game is about.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm curious about Skylanders too, because like that game.
Oh, I love Skylanders. Like I'm a Skylanders stalwart personally. I think it's a better playing game.
Sure,
and the characters have more variety, which is why I'm into it.
My question.
The characters are stupid though.
My question is like, how long does that thing last realistically? Because
I don't know.
You know,
it's done after this year.
I was just thinking about this the other day. I was talking about this with Brian the other day. Like, they haven't announced a new Skylanders this year, and they usually would have done it by.
If they haven't by now, they won't.
I think by ToyCon they usually would, by like New York, whatever. I might be flubbing the name, but that's usually they would announce it by then, and they would show it there. But now it's like months after that.
Because they don't have the same stuff to dip into that like Disney and Lego do, you know, because like they have so many actually licensed franchises that kids are familiar with, and then you get like this, like Spyro the Dragon was like not even that big when he was big,
right?
You know, so it's like I don't know how much cachet like a lot of those dudes have anymore. I don't know. I
mean, like to let people in like slightly on the journalistic process. The first year, I think like they didn't know how big it was going to be, so it didn't get that much attention from Activision. But then the second and third and maybe fourth years, it was huge, and they had it at like ToyCon and things like that. Last year was the first year that you were starting to see, from the journalistic side, that you were starting to see like signs of fading because they didn't have like a big presence at ToyCon or anything. They just like kind of invited journos to a hotel room, and the producers were like traveling to different cities and inviting journos that live there to like to come into the hotel room and check it out, and so I did last year, and that's how I.
Which sounds so weird when you say it out loud. Hey, come into the hotel room. We have toys.
It is really creepy. Game demos in hotel rooms are always weird.
There were multiple people there. They offered me water. It was fine. But anyway, point is, like last year was the first year.
I'm not drinking anything handed to me in that situation. That's just me.
I woke up 3 hours later, and Skylanders was great. Anyway. Like, that was the first sign of it sort of, like, fading and them not really putting much marketing money into it. And then this year, like, we've seen literally none, because I don't know what's going on with this year's game.
I mean, what else do they have to do? Because they did, what was last year's? Like a car
race, was vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, and then they've done the Swap Force, they did the Trap Team. I mean, like, what do you do next? Like a Skylanders fighting game?
Actually, yeah.
Well, I think in the height of its popularity, they said they were going to make like a new mobile game, and that just kind of got delayed and never manifested itself. I think actually it was supposed to
knockoff was supposed to come out
at some point. The card game, like the
Battlecast, yeah.
Yeah, just never happened. So
I mean, I could see them doing something like free to play on mobile and being okay with that.
They have some games on there. I think, as far as I understand, they're like little mini games basically, but yeah, the Battlecast thing, because they've had this weird card game. Here's the weird thing about Skylanders, and this is already going on way too long. What's
the weird thing talking about, Steve?
They have an in-game card game. They already have that. That already exists, and it's existed through several iterations. It's like a mini game inside the game. But then they announced a separate card-like game for mobile, and it's like, why aren't you just taking the thing that you already have, which is, it's always been kind of like Baby's First Hearthstone. But it's like that's what it is basically, and it's like just take that and like put that on mobile. That could be your game, and instead they just have to build like this whole thing. I don't know. It's very strange. So okay, we've gone way off the plot here. Brian,
if I'm guessing, I mean the fact they have not announced a new Skylanders tells you a lot about where Activision's at with that franchise, and the fact that they closed down a lot of the they pretty much closed down the studio that made Superchargers, right? Or there's some pretty significant layoffs.
Who's the studio?
And then
was it Vicarious Visions?
I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, and then if you look also too, like I've seen the starter sets and the packs and that sort of thing going. Like the starter sets have been going for like $20 in some sales. You've had like huge packs of characters, like stuff that would normally cost like $60. You can get it for like $10. That tells me that this is not selling, and
also,
that
they
have been basically pushed out of their own market.
You don't have these licensed characters, and the well runs dry after a while. They introduced a character that was literally a piece of broccoli, and they called him Broccoli Guy.
Broccoli Guy.
So that's the fucking, I don't know,
Well,
here.
shit, I can do that job.
Here's I don't know, Lamp Man and soda can fella. I don't know.
So Brian, we went way off track talking about Toys to Life games, but what else have you been playing?
Well, basically this. I've been playing Bravely Second, and as you can tell, I've basically got my guys working in their equivalent of, I think, a sweatshop. They're making little like plush toys, and that's not like literally. I've been at my office doing work, doing professional things, and I've had this running for most of the day.
Brian
and,
enjoys games that you don't have to play.
I love games you don't have to play.
So like cookie clicker, like stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the fourth thing about me.
That's the crazy thing about Bravely Second is that they put a clicker, like Bravely Second in my mind is Square's way of answering the mobile market and being like, okay, we're going to make a hardcore classic RPG, but with all these kinds of tools to speed up the progress, so it sort of feels more like a modern mobile-like game. But then they like literally put mobile games inside the game, like a clicker. Like that's what that is. They put a clicker in it.
And even they have like two of them.
I love the idea of working in a sweatshop making stuffed animals because that's just about the most Japanese thing I could think of. That's pretty great.
But like, it's never explained why they're doing this. Like in the story, like there's this weird owl guy who shows up, and it's really kind of scary. And then he's just like hands this one of the characters a doll and like, oh, we should make these. There's never any discussion of, oh, is there a market for these dolls? Oh, what are these dolls even supposed to be?
They sell like crazy.
Let's make these dolls.
That's amazing.
I think the progress of that clicker, like, it could take hours and hours to actually build up all of the upgrades so that you can make
it's
these
idiotic, but I can't stop watching it.
Because one of the upgrades, this is the funny thing, one of the upgrades in the clicker is an exchange rate for the actual like in-game currency, so that you can use it to buy like items and stuff in the RPG side of it. So like at first the exchange rate is like terrible. It's like 10,000 to 1 or something like that. But you can like upgrade the exchange rate, I presume, to the point that you just like make boatloads of money.
This sounds like macroeconomics, the game. Like
yeah, it's weird.
This game is all about people who like to just like mess with systems, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that is what Bravely Second is.
The other crazy thing about this game is that I was talking to you a little bit about this off mic, but this plot is like cute and silly and fantastical, but then it takes like these hard left turns into social commentary in ways that are really surprising. And I think done pretty well generally, but like the first game, there's a whole subplot about like patriarchy and like exploitation of women and that sort of thing. And it's like, wow, this is a huge tonal shift from the rest of the game. And in this
with these cute chibi characters.
Yeah. And in this one, there's like a whole subplot about the perils of believing in sort of this false meritocracy in academia. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is like these are like real world conversations we're having, and my character is dressed in like this costume where they look like a fencer or they look like a wizard, and they're just like talking about this stuff. Yeah, like talking about like, these social class issues. I'm like, wow. Oh yeah, and that's the other great thing about this game. You can actually strap swords to your head. Like that's to me. True. Like there is a class in the game where literally every part, like every armor slot on the character can be equipped with a weapon. So literally, I'm just picturing, and they don't do this in the game. I think this is a downfall of the game. But I'm just literally picturing somebody who's like covered in swords, like running at the enemy.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, I picture swords serving as sort of like stilts on their legs. They're just like kind of awkwardly walking.
Anyway, it's dumb and I love it. Like this is a wonderful game. And I can't wait to actually have time to finish it. But I've just been like picking away at it for the last 2 weeks.
Probably a solid 40 hours. So you've got a trek ahead of you.
Well, it's going to take me longer because I'm just going to sit here leaving this thing running while I'm doing the show and doing my work and that sort of
You'll have
thing.
a lot of time on there in the clicker.
Yeah, like 90% of my time is going to be in the stupid stuffed animal game.
So as I sort of alluded to, I'm not playing a lot these days because I'm sort of unwinding from playing a bunch of review games back to back, including Star Fox, which is not great. So I haven't really played a lot that's new. I'm just kind of trying to wrap up things that I left half finished. I have played some Hearthstone though, and I have to mention it because there's an expansion. Well, I have to now I have a reason to talk about it. Most weeks they'll be like, "Have you been playing Hearthstone?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have, but I'm not going to talk about it because there's nothing." Really
I just assume that there are basically two states of your being. One is playing Hearthstone. The other is not playing Hearthstone, and that one you just don't really think about.
Yeah. So the new expansion, I'll just mention very quickly. It ties into our big topic, so it's a good lead-in. But I'll mention very quickly some quick thoughts on it. The expansion launched yesterday. Whispers of the Old Gods. I opened my 50 packs because they had that pre-order deal thing going on, and then they actually gave away a pretty significant number of packs. They if you win enough standard games, you can get 13 free packs, which is almost as much as you would get for $20. I think $20 buys 15 packs, so that's pretty significant. I have to say. And I'm actually writing a sort of a think piece about this right now because I wanted to do some sort of review-like thing for it. I kind of thought that I would stick with Wild, which is their format where anything goes, any expansion goes, you can play any card. But I'm actually sort of gravitating more towards Standard, and I'm finding it just a much more pleasant experience, which surprises me.
Now, real quick, just because I haven't played Hearthstone in a really long time, Standard is that
Standard is
expansion only?
The core set. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the core and basic set plus the last 2 years worth of cards.
Okay.
So in this case, it cycles out 2 expansions, which is 2 kinds of expansion. 1 expansion and 1 adventure, which adventure is just a fancy name for a different kind of expansion. But it cycles out Naxxramas and Goblins versus Gnomes. So every year they're going to do sort of a reboot where they're like, okay, now it's the last 2 years worth of things. So it's always going to be somewhat more limited, but they're going to be able to balance it a lot easier. And that's one of the things that I'm mentioning in my write-up is that it feels a lot more balanced. It feels like these nerfs that they introduced right before the patch and this expansion and the standard mode were all sort of made to work in tandem to make it just feel more balanced altogether. So it actually it's a lot more exciting to go into that and be facing off against a class and not instantly know what they're probably playing because of course they are. There's a lot less net decking going on and things like that. So
that
for
seems
now,
like
at
a
least,
smart way to couple all of those things together.
Yes, yeah, it really is. So for now, it's a lot more exciting to actually play these games, and I've had a lot of fun playing a new kind of hunter that I cooked up. That I'm sure there's some superior net deck version of it on Hearthstone or whatever, but but I like the version that I made, and I'll revise as necessary. But it basically revolves around death rattles, all these death rattle cards, and then there's the new legendary that summons back all of your death rattles. So if you get to turn 10 and you're starting to run low on your minions, you just bring that guy out and 6 other guys just pop up all of a sudden. And I've had multiple games where the other player just conceded when I did that. They're just
let me ask you a very important
okay.
Hearthstone question. You're the expert, okay?
Yeah.
I want to get your take on this.
I'll accept that title. Yeah.
What if, as part of the promotion for the Warcraft movie, which I think is made by Universal Studios, I don't know.
I think you're right.
What if they made Minions?
What?
If they made Minions?
You mean the little yellow guys from Despicable Me?
That's exactly what I mean, Steven.
Are you asking?
They took another Universal Studios property, put it into Hearthstone. What if that was the new dominant class in the meta? Would that grow the game, or would people quit?
The minion class? Yeah. That'd be weird. I have to say.
Minions.
This is, to be fair, this is a game that does not take its lore super seriously, and I've actually heard some big Warcraft nerds kind of complain about how it's all kind of silly and goofy and breaks the lore or whatever. I don't really care about Warcraft lore. I don't even know that much about Warcraft lore. Most of what I know from this game. So, but there's Ragnaros is a classic legendary card. Everybody knows it. It's the one that says "Die insect" and it flings a big fireball at a random target. This one introduces Ragnaros Lightlord, which is like a light version of the corrupted Ragnaros, and it's like has nothing to do with the mythology of Hearthstone of Warcraft or anything like that. And some people complained, and I think Ben Bro, the designer, was like, "This is kind of a what if of the Warcraft world. Don't take this stuff too seriously, guys." So if they introduce something super silly like that, I don't know. I would get kind of annoyed by seeing minions all the time, I guess.
Minions are best kept in one-off movies that will probably never get released in theaters again, and on my Facebook feed from my relatives posting things about their sister.
Yeah, they're the new Calvin. They're like pissing all over Ford logos and stuff now.
Yeah, but like, my favorite thing, and there's actually been kind of a blowback with it where people like paired minions with like Nietzsche quotes, and it's kind of amazing. But my favorite thing is when they're like, "Oh, nobody knows you like a sister," and then it's like two minions hugging. I'm like, I don't like the internet sometimes.
They're
like,
not sisters. They're asexual.
They're like little pills. I don't. They were cute. I like Despicable Me 1 and 2. They're cute movies, but like it's enough.
I feel like in Despicable Me they were more of a background player. In Despicable Me 2 they were like, "We're gonna make this movie about the minions."
They were your cutaway comedy gag to fill in the gaps in between like the sentimental parts, and like I was totally cool with that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the minions joke.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I got it. I got it. That was pretty good.
That's like 90% of what I do here. I just like listen to you until I come up with something stupid.
Congratulations. You have fulfilled your sacred vow. All right, so let's
That's the
move
PhD
on.
at work, folks.
Let's run quickly from that into the big topic. So to set up, Hearthstone launched its third major expansion this week, injecting hundreds of new cards into the long-lasting game. True to its CCG roots, it has remained a single release, no sequels, no spin-offs, and expansions prolonging its lifespan far beyond most multiplayer games. Could other games find similar success with the same business model? This week we talk about expansions. Why don't more publishers iterate on a single release over a longer time? Is a new boxed retail worth the investment, and what would make the industry shift to a more add-on based model? This came to mind partly because of Hearthstone, also partly because for whatever significance we can draw from it, the next Call of Duty seems to be called Infinite Warfare. But that's the classic thing that people say about Call of Duty, right? Like, oh, well, why don't you just release, if the multiplayer is a thing, why don't you basically just release a multiplayer base that you update? And similar to with like Madden and MLB, like there are lots of these series around that people sort of wonder why they have to buy a new one every year.
I think it's a fair point. I think it's a really interesting point. And in terms of Call of Duty, I've always had that thought about zombies, especially. Like, if you look at the last one, like, the zombies campaign was so weird, different from anything else in Black Ops 3. Like, it was good. It wasn't like it was bad, but to me, it's like, just release zombies as its own little separate thing. Like, I don't... It is weird. And like it does make you wonder like why they don't just release Call of Duty and then like this year, hey, this expansion is coming out for it, or this one,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a money thing. It's always a money thing, right? Because number one, like you get that hype train.
At what point does the industry tip into the point that releasing a constant stream of add-ons is actually more profitable? Because obviously profit is the reason, but releasing a constant stream of add-ons is actually more profitable than releasing a new boxed product.
I think when they can get the marketing down for it, because when you're able to generate new hype for a brand new game, like that's what really ends up selling a lot of the Call of Duty.
That's true.
Like I don't know how all the map packs do. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. I would be curious to find out though, especially if they release single player content or multiplayer content or something. I don't know, but that would be my if they have an expansion, like they don't get to roll out like sneaks. They don't get to put like blurred out copies of pictures on their Twitter feeds to like tease new announcements coming up because nobody cares as much.
Yeah.
So I think once marketing could nail it, then maybe. Like I don't see why not.
So it's your fault, marketing.
It's always marketing's fault.
I think that's a really good point. Like it's hard to build this huge event around. Oh, hey, here's a $30 add-on to a game that we released 2 years ago, right?
Right.
So I think that's a really
the closest
point.
to accomplishing that was probably the Taken King for Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did release it as a new box product as well, but they were treating it like it was basically a sequel, which it wasn't really, but that's sort of how marketing treated it.
There's something powerful to numbers too. I mean, you look at like Fallout 4. Like, I love Fallout 4. It's a very divisive game, and I get that. It's very much 3.5 in a lot of ways, but I will admit I was way more excited about Fallout 4 than I would have been for any DLC announcements for Fallout 3, because that game is old, and with the idea of a brand new game comes like, oh, there's so many new possibilities that they could introduce to it. Which isn't to say they couldn't do that if they were just like iterating on a single game, but it's a different format, it's a different feel, I think.
So to read a quick comment from the chatty, Mobab said we are getting that. He basically said in the sort of not AAA space that we've sort of been framing this in, Crusader Kings 2, which was released in 2012, is on its 11th expansion, and Cities Skylines is on its second one, with a third one probably on its way. Himtroll commented that the game is most comparable to Hearthstone, and this is actually what I was getting at, but he got around to it too. Are ones like MMOs, MOBAs, and freemium multiplayer games, all of which have generally massive multiplayer player numbers in several years of history. So yeah, like the Blizzard model, basically, by referencing MMOs and MOBAs and Hearthstone all at one time. It's like, this is what Blizzard is doing. This is their business model now.
And that's how they've been doing it for a long time. Like, I remember when I was a younger sort, I was really big into StarCraft and Warcraft and Diablo and that sort of thing. And so it was a big deal. Like, it was almost like this entirely new game comes out. So you wait 2 or 3 years, and they would put out a thing that was like $10, $20 cheaper. And it's like, okay, here's a whole bunch of new units, here's a whole new campaign level, here's a whole new class, here's all these sorts of things that change the game fundamentally, right? And so you kind of like waited for that and like really expected it, and when it came out, it's like, wow, this really fundamentally makes this a different game. And I wondered, like, because sometimes I think, well, when we look at like season passes and stuff like that, they're almost trying to do the same thing, but none of them are quite promising that shift, right?
Yeah.
Like, Brood War comes out, StarCraft changes forever, right? Reaper of Souls comes out, Diablo 3 changes forever.
Yeah, I was going to mention Diablo 3 as another example of the Blizzard model.
Yeah, Map Pack 3 for Call of Duty comes out, okay, you play the same basic game on some new maps. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, I don't know. And I think the other thing, too, is that with season passes, because I've been trying to figure out ever since we announced this topic, what's the difference, right? Because season passes, you could argue, are kind of like the expansion model in a new context. But the difference
and kind of split up over the course of like half a year, basically.
The difference to me is that in an expansion, you pretty much know what you're going to get. Like, it's pretty much a quantified thing saying, hey, we've added this, 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 and this. Whereas with a season pass, you're simply saying, all right, here's $30, $50 in some cases now, and maybe it'll be good content. I don't know, but here you go. Which to me is a harder ask. Right?
I mean, they do really, they'll release updates where they might make like little gameplay tweaks and things, but I think Blizzard does approach downloadable content from a completely different angle, where they do like kind of retool everything. They kind of build a sequel into an already existing game through some new content, which it's cool, and I think it's different. So I think it would also just require like a shift in how we look at DLC as less of just extra stuff and more of, hey, we're going to retool this and kind of respond to community feedback instead of hang on to it for another sequel.
And I think part of this discussion is sort of the inherent in this discussion is the thought of diminishing returns as far as what a sequel is. I'm going to put on my old fogey glasses and cane here for a second and talk about the NES era. Like, when you got a sequel for a Nintendo game or an NES game, unless it was made by Nintendo, Nintendo tended to innovate with all of their games, sequel or not. But like Mega Man, for example, we are Mega Man fans. Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 6, same engine, same basic everything. Like, you could do that back in the old days. Like, you could release a sequel that it's like, oh, this is basically just new levels of the thing that I like, And at some point, we've crossed over into the world where that's not okay anymore. And as Himtroll said, like, Hearthstone is just a card game. You can't really release a Hearthstone 2, because what would you do? You need to fundamentally change it in some way, because that's what people expect from sequels, is they expect a fundamental change. And he says shooters can introduce new gameplay mechanics, new maps, weapons, and modes. You can introduce some of those things through DLC, but not all of them, because we kind of expect a bigger jump in terms of sequels. But I think the calls for, oh, how come we can't just get an update, a roster update, is people just saying, like, wait, this Madden game is a lot like last year's Madden game.
Yeah.
Well, the rules of football can't change that much. Anytime we talk about sports, like you're talking about games that have been pretty much the same, with a few exceptions for, in some cases, a century or more, right? Baseball does not change all that much. The basic rules don't. Like, we sort of migrate from throwing underhand to overhand, using gloves, that sort of thing. But the basic rules don't really vary. Like, you add extra
here's like a thought exercise. Here's a thought exercise as relates to this topic. Like, can shooters change? Like, can Call of Duty change that much between years? Or is there a core Call of Duty, multiplayer rule set that is just as recognizable as the rules of baseball? And you can't really introduce that much variance before it's not Call of Duty anymore.
I mean, the thing is, like, shooters have changed. Like, obviously, like, you look at something like GoldenEye on N64, which, I loved as a kid, but it's not good. If you go back and play it now, you look at something like that, then you go to something like Halo, where they actually took a controller and they made reasonable first-person shooter controls on a console. And then you look at something like Modern Warfare, where they kind of retooled it and they set the blueprint for what everybody's doing today. I think you can absolutely change it. Like, there's, Superhot kind of did that a little bit with their weird, like, time twisting mechanic, right? Like, there's definitely ways to go about innovating on it, but, it's hard because in order to do that, you have to, like, find, like, a new industry standard, and that's not something that just happens within the game.
And most people aren't trying to do that. They're trying to make, it's like Call of Duty, but X.
Exactly. Well, because it's the accepted format right now. Like, if I go into a shooter, chances are very good that clicking in the left stick is going to help me sprint. Yeah. I'm going to have a crouch button, I'm going to have a jump button, I'm going to have a grenade button, I'm going to have an aim down sights, I'm going to have a shoot. Like, it's pretty standard. Like, it hasn't changed all that much.
I feel like this could be a topic of its own. Someday, like the shared language of games and how horrible we are at communicating that to newcomers. Where we're like, you jump this way and you shoot this way. Everybody knows that those buttons do that, and then people are like, what? What are you talking about? No. And we all get frustrated by the tutorial stuff, and it's like, this is somebody's first Call of Duty. At any rate, yeah.
No, I will say on the subject of Hearthstone, like the one disadvantage that I see to adding new content to one thing for a long amount of time is like the issue that I have with Hearthstone. Like, I like Hearthstone. I haven't played Hearthstone in, I don't know, at least 2 years. A year, 2 years, whatever. And, like, jumping into it now, like, really intimidates me because I don't want to drop all that money on new expansions.
I've heard that a lot, and it's not incorrect. Like there have been proof of concept people who, very high level streamers who are very good at the game, who like start a new account that's free to play and just see if they can make it to legend. They can usually do it within like a couple months, just doing it free. And it's like, so it is possible, but you are already good at this game. You already know what you're doing.
And there's something intimidating behind it too. It would be like if I tried to jump into World of Warcraft now. I've never played that game, and now there's like so much content that I know I will never get through. And it's like, well,
you might as well just not.
Exactly. Like it's
and that has nothing to do with the content. I'm just saying, you might as well not.
As someone who's played some Warcraft recently to try to get a Hearthstone hero unlock, I don't know how well that thing holds up. Without like macros and mods.
Well, the early game is super boring. Like
it's so boring. Oh my god.
Once you get past level 20, it actually
reward
picks up.
On the early game, which is the most boring part.
Yeah, like that's just my concern with it. Is like, especially something like Destiny now. Like, I did not like Destiny when it first came out. Am I gonna go back and play it now? But now that there's all this content, no. Like,
it happens like pretty rapidly at this point. That like even the Division. Like, the Division is a game that I played, a fair amount when it first came out. Sort of trailed off as I was reviewing some other games, and now I'm trying to like go back and finish the campaign. And I'm already like, oh man, I'm only like level 21, and everybody else is like level 30 with their excellent gear because they've been playing every day and doing grinds. And
you can't play that game by yourself. It's not fun. From experience, I can say this.
Games pass you by very quickly these days. It's a like 1 week of super popularity, and then it's the next thing.
And it's not even just games, right? Like, I think it's an entertainment-wide thing. It's kind of like the MCU. If you had somebody that was trying to jump into the Marvel movies now,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
In order to
They're being
understand what is going on with the Avengers, like, like you're in for multiple days worth of movies. You know?
What's Thor doing in that pool? I don't know. It doesn't.
Well, nobody knows that yet. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much you follow those movies. You have no idea what's happening in there.
That said,
was a deleted scene.
I did not reject that scene.
Of course.
I'm not going to complain about it. I had no idea what the point
He's a
was.
gorgeous man, but...
He is a very good-looking man.
I think we can move on to sort of our subtopic, or
talking more about Chris Hemsworth and how gorgeous he is. I'm
yeah,
okay with it.
We can talk about that all.
Just
get lost in his eyes.
Those blue eyes. So yeah, let's. We can move to our secondary topic. This is part of the newsy bit, so I guess first I'll let you hit our sponsorship, Brian.
I sure will. Audible.com. They are offering you, yes you, the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial to check out Audible.com. There's lots of great books on games, tech, hundreds of other topics. Every week we try to highlight one we think is personally interesting that we've personally enjoyed. This week, check out The Secret History of Wonder Woman by Jill Lepore, a fascinating work of historical analysis that delves into the history of an American pop culture icon to dig up the bizarre and occasionally, strangely, weirdly romantic story behind her. I need to read this book for a thing I've got to do this week. I am really far behind on it, so this would be a great opportunity for me to download that book and listen to it and get caught up.
Listen to it while you play your Chompy game, and you'll be accomplishing so many things at once.
Yeah. So if you want to do that, read along with me or whatever, check out that or over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/chattycast.
Thank you, Brian. So this is the time for Newsy Bits, which usually is just a quick, hey, I'm going to hit you with a couple news stories, give us your thoughts very quickly. We're sort of doing a split topic this week because this first Newsy bit is serving as our second big topic because it was such a weird, sudden thing, and it's sort of late breaking news, so why not? The Nintendo NX is not coming until 2017, for one thing. The Legend of Zelda is launching alongside it in 2017, so it's been delayed yet again. And it appears to be the only new thing that Nintendo has on their slate for E3 this year, which is also pretty weird. So basically, like, there's this trio of kind of weird, not particularly positive announcements that just kind of came all in a row today. And as a Nintendo fan, which I've kind of openly declared myself as before, not so much that I can't be critical of bad games like Star Fox, but like
or Zelda. I'm just saying.
Well, we have differing opinions on Zelda, but this kind of hit me like, oh man, like what is even going on at Nintendo right now? Like, help me make sense of this.
I think they're still trying to figure that out.
I don't know. This does not instill great faith in the new leadership. I always felt like Iwata had a vision, and maybe it didn't always work out, but he was steering the ship in a particular direction.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, I'm always careful to place that much responsibility on one person because it's a publicly held company. Like, it's not just one person calling the shots there. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is so uncharacteristic of the internet, but we are jumping to conclusions very early.
Don't be silly. Why would the internet do that?
It's usually such a positive and contemplative thing. No, I think people are freaking out a little bit.
I mean, like, we don't know what the NX is still.
No.
So it's hard to say what the reason for this is. I think everyone kind of assumed that it would be shown at E3 this year. Actually, I don't even know if that's an assumption. I think Nintendo has said things signaling that in the past. But we kind of thought we were going to be seeing the NX this year, which led people to think, okay, it's probably going to launch holiday season.
Well, yeah, I think they came out and there was either somebody said something or there was a rumor that it was going to release in 2016, which I thought was bullshit forever. I'm like, no, there's no way. They would have built up the hype around that thing way longer before this. I don't know. I have to wonder if I mean, Nintendo's not necessarily one to react to what the other people in the industry are doing, but based on, the PSVR coming out later this year, plus whatever is going on with this PlayStation 4K / Xbox 1.5 or whatever, Such
Yeah.
terrible, terrible names.
They're terrible ideas. So, I mean,
I mean that's its whole show in and of itself. But I do have to wonder if they aren't semi-reacting to that a little bit, just to kind of get out of the way and let those things take their course. And
That
way
might
the
be.
NX is
Yeah, I
its
mean, I
own
don't. It's hard to say without knowing more about the device and what it does and what it even is. If this was, if this was the development of the console saying like we need more time to iron out some kinks, or it was the production pipeline, or it was the marketing, like we know literally nothing about it.
Well, and people, what's annoying me is people are acting like they're not going to play anything from Nintendo this year. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
I mean, like
Yeah.
the thing
Pokemon is coming out later this year, and X and Y sold like crazy. Like, if
I
you
have
think
trouble
that Sun and
sussing
Moon,
the Zelda is the only new thing language, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Zelda is the only new thing. Like, there's still going to be all the stuff that they've already announced.
well, it's the only playable thing. That's the most important part. Like, this is the only thing they're actually going to have on the show floor, which is weird in and of
That's
itself.
pretty weird.
They have not denied that there's going to be a Nintendo Direct. They have not denied any other announcements. They're just saying, hey, all we're showing at our booth at E3 that you can play is Zelda. And I think that's important to kind of like keep in mind, at least unless I've missed something.
no, that sounds right. That's what I was hearing.
See, that is confusing to me because, like, why wouldn't they? Maybe they're going to have extra demos upstairs because for people who haven't been to E3, they've got the big show floor, and then they've got sort of a cordoned off area for press where they show off other demos or have interviews and things like that. So I kind of wonder if they're going to show off more up there for things like Kirby or Pokemon or things like that, because it's like you've got a lineup that you can be showing. Like, you have to let some people play it. It would be super bizarre if they have none of those things.
Right, and I think there's something to be said of E3's relevance too this year, because you look at, like, who was it? Let's see, Electronic Arts will not be there because they're doing their own thing.
EA, was it Disney?
I think
Disney pulled out, EA pulled out, and I think there was a third one. Well, Wargaming, but they were never really a big thing in the first place.
I thought there was another big one too. I don't remember, but like, there's been several companies that are like pulling out and like.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote an editorial about this like last year when Nintendo was shifting to this. Hey, we're going to give a Nintendo Direct, and we're going to host these treehouse things where we just talk directly to our fans and sort of we control all the messaging. So
and that works super well for them too.
Yeah, I wrote this editorial last year that was like, this is super advantageous to them in a multitude of ways. Oh, yeah. And so more companies are going to copy it, and this year we're totally seeing that because EA is like, we're going to host our own event. So this just strikes me as another Nintendo taking the first step thing. For as much as people criticize them for lagging behind.
I think there's also
in some ways.
I think we think of E3 as a strictly press thing, and it's not. Like, E3 is also a huge retailer/distributor event. So like, I think having Zelda playable is going to be important because, I mean, Zelda's still relatively a niche franchise if you look at it. In the grand scheme of things, the stuff that's really popular with Nintendo is Pokemon, Mario, stuff like that. Zelda is still very much kind of its own smaller thing. It's kind of, it's bigger than Metroid, but it's kind of in the same vein where the people that love it, but it's not necessarily a widespread thing. So I think having that game there, especially if they're going to be banking so much on the NX, is important to them from a retail perspective. So you kind of have to take that into consideration as well.
I also wonder, I mean, like, the part of today's announcements was confirming something that I think everyone kind of suspected for a while, that Zelda is going to be a cross-platform NX Wii U release. So obviously, if they're not going to be showing the NX at E3, but they're going to have Zelda playable, it's obviously going to be the Wii U version. But is playing Zelda going to let us glean any information about what the NX can do? Because it has to be able to at least do everything the Wii U version can do. You know?
I don't know.
They will not have the NX version of that playable. I would be very surprised if they did.
I mean, like, playing the Wii U version is like whatever functionality they have on the gamepad versus the screen. It's like, okay, well, the NX needs to be able to approximate this in some way, and that could inform us in some way. Or maybe, who knows? Maybe the versions are wildly different. Yeah.
I mean, the closest analog is Twilight Princess. Like, technically, you had a GameCube version of that, but it was really built for the Wii remote, and I mean, that game wasn't very good. But this new Zelda looks way better. I'll say that.
Brian is our noted Zelda skeptic.
There are 3 great Zelda games.
I'm kind of with you. I'll let you talk though.
Phyllis.
One is Link to the Past.
Yes.
One is Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
The other is Hyrule Warriors.
Haven't played it, so I don't have
You
an
should
opinion.
play it. It's fantastic.
I tend to prefer the 2D top-down isometric Zelda games over the 3D ones.
I think that's
personal
a
opinion.
good call.
As do I. Although Wind Waker is also a good game.
Wind Waker's all right. I like Wind Waker
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, to be fair, like I haven't played a ton of the 3D ones. Like I've played Ocarina of Time. I've done I can't. Majora's
I've
Mask.
played
Yeah, I've
all
done
of
like
them,
those.
and I've
but-
liked one of them.
I am still hoping and praying that when they say that they are borrowing from Link Between Worlds, or they're taking things they learned from Link Between Worlds for this new Zelda, that they really mean that.
Yeah, that's a great
Because
game.
Yeah.
a Zelda game like in a 3D style using that same basic design, I'm all about that. I will get that day one.
And just the general philosophy of, hey, we aren't beholden to the Ocarina of Time formula.
Please.
I think that's the important thing. So yeah, thanks for making me feel slightly better about the Nintendo thing. The other thing I kind of want to address real quick while we're on this topic is everyone just kind of we have no actual information on what the NX is, but it seems like the speculation is it's going to be this sort of hub station handheld system, console system hybrid, and I think that is probably true because where there's smoke, there's fire. But at the same time, I kind of wonder if that narrative has taken hold so deeply that if it's anything different, people are going to be like, "What the fuck?" You know, because it's like it's the old a console manufacturer or a game publisher or whatever like breaks a promise that they never made.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
So
I'm kind
I
of
wonder,
hoping it isn't, to be honest. Like, I love my 3DS and I love my Wii U, but I love them both for different reasons. You know, like, I don't want to take my Wii U games with me. I want to sit down and play those games with friends. But my 3DS games, I'd love to have with me if I'm, like, on a bus or if I'm traveling or something.
And you don't want to play them on a TV. Like,
No. It's, I don't know. Maybe
I want them to keep the
because...
Street Pass thing going. Keep it going,
Street
guys.
Pass for
Yeah.
sure.
Street Pass is a great. That was a great idea.
We could probably lose the Badge Arcade.
Makes
I'm kinda
Badge
like
Arcade's dumb.
Badge Arcade's dumb. Puzzles.
I will take more
Puzzles are
Wrestling
fine with.
Field
Just let me gather like 1,000.
or that.
Not
Right.
10, 1,000. I want to take my 3DS to E3, and then when I go home at night, get all my puzzle pieces.
Yes, until like early the next morning.
Yes,
Dig-
until 5 a.m. I'm getting puzzle pieces. All right. Anyway, we can move on to other newsy bits now. I'll focus on one more really. The Call of Duty. We've mentioned this briefly. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was sort of leaked this week.
I can't not cringe.
It's a bad name. And, I mean,
so
like,
dumb.
We talked about it in the room. It's sort of trying to imply the idea of shoot, I'm blanking on it now. But never-ending war. You know, like, and that's a thing that people talk about in sort of, you know, military tactics and politics circles. That's a weird thing to name your game after.
It's the war economy from Metal Gear all over again.
Yeah, it's weird. But the latest report is that it may include Modern Warfare Remastered and release on November 4th. That release date sounds pretty legit because they always release, you know, around there. Modern Warfare Remastered also seems like, you know, a thing they could probably do, just update the assets.
The question though is, are they
That's
doing all of it, including the multiplayer, or is it just going to be the single player campaign?
Yeah, I would have to think that it would just be the campaign, because why would you want to release two competing multiplayer games on the same day?
I mean, there are people that have been calling for those maps. They've been remaking those maps forever too. So like, I don't know.
I mean, like that. If they do something, I think that's what it would be. It would be, hey, Infinite Warfare has these new maps and also includes these old throwback maps, but it's not. It's not Modern Warfare multiplayer. It's Infinite Warfare multiplayer with the old maps.
Warfare.
It's a dumb name.
Here's why I'm kind of okay with it. I'll play the devil's advocate.
Because I have a prediction of what you're going to say.
Okay,
go ahead.
what do you think? I'm going to let you play me.
Slowly
Play
turning
the
into X-Men
devil's
and, like,
advocate. What would you say?
Because that series is slowly turning into like X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is future sci-fi nonsense, and that is like this is where I got onto Call of Duty. When you could like give me robot arms and jetpacks and
Sure.
like mutant powers. That's what I want. I don't care about modern warfare or World War II or anything like that. That stuff's
Or your
fine,
ponderous
whatever.
navel-gazing about modern politics.
Yeah, like I don't like the weirdness of like saying, okay, hey, I'm doing a thing for fun that real people are doing to not die, and like it's just.
Mhm.
But when you just say, okay, you can light stuff on fire with your hands, yes,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
more of that.
I'd play that. But I don't.
Yeah.
I just let's apply this naming convention to another game, right?
Sure.
Like Need for Speed, Never-Ending Racing. You know, like it just gets really dumb. Like it's just
It's
like
just-
Yeah.
that's like a placeholder title. That's not,
It's so bad.
stop it. Just
Pokemon, catch them all, but you can't because there's infinite of them.
I know, right? Yeah. Well,
Here
I mean,
comes
there's like
broccoli guy.
there's basically Pokemon now.
That was an expert level callback.
I just say my
Pokemon,
first rodeo, Steve.
We have one more. We have one more newsy bit, and I'll make this one very quick because there's not that much to say about it. But the Pokemon Go beta gameplay video leaked. That looks pretty cool. Looks kind of neat.
Can you
real
explain?
dumb.
I'm curious. What is it about that gets you guys excited about it? 'Cause, like,
I don't know.
I'm genuinely like, I don't get it.
I could try. Like the idea to me of being able to, and I know that like right off the bat, people expecting this to be a Pokemon game in the traditional sense are going to be sorely disappointed. This is a free-to-play mobile game. You don't level guys up. You don't catch you basically just it looks like you catch the same monsters again and again and again, and then when you do that, they get stronger. But the idea of walking around outside and pointing your phone and look, there's a Meowth underneath that tree.
Yeah, that's.
There's something about that, as stupid as it is, that appeals to me on this very fundamental level, and I'm 30.
There's an appeal in wherever you go, just breaking out your phone and seeing what Pokemon are there. There's a duck pond down the street from where I live, like pretty close. We went there last night. I want to go there and just be like, there's a fucking Gyarados in the water. You know?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I hope you
would
can
love
show
to
that
do
to your daughter too and really freak her out when
Yeah.
she's.
Like, yeah.
That kid's pretty tough.
With the
It'd probably
phone
take a
can
lot
see
more than that to freak her out.
Yeah, she's a tough one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Pokemon Go.
I mean, I'm not throwing any shade. Like, if people want to walk around looking for, like, that's fine.
No,
like,
no, throw all the shade you want. Like, you're not wrong.
If
I just-
Miitomo
I
is
don't-
any
I
indication,
just-
it's going to like
Oh,
make
God.
so much money regardless of how
It's
stupid
going to
it
be better
is.
than Miitomo. I'm going to call it right now. It is better than
Oh,
Miitomo.
Anything is better than Miitomo.
Like, that was...
Don't
I
get
know
me going
we
on
talked about it
Miitomo.
pretty positively like a couple weeks ago, but I have not touched it since, and I
It was
don't feel like
cute.
I'm
It was
missing
cute for
anything.
like the first 3 days, and then I was like,
Miitomo
yeah,
is adorable for an hour when you can see all the shit posting that your friends' Miis have done, and then it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I
just
laughed so hard at, like, the don't ever talk to me and my son ever again memes of people who do. And it was great, and, like, I'm done. Like, that's all I needed.
I grinded it long enough to get my Zelda P-Cross, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Dress me up like Shinsuke Nakamura, I'm done.
Yeah. So let's move on. Let's get out of this madness. We've got one more segment to wrap up real quick. It's the fastest one. It's Beat the Doc, the part of the show in which I have used my hosting powers by pitting my friends against each other in a pointless game. As always, our guest will go first. Today's game, actually, these are kind of, I'll make this a buzz-in. Say your name to buzz in. Today's game is called... Yes?
So it's the Pokemon rule. We have
It's
to
the
say
Pokemon.
our own name.
You say your own name.
What
Or
if
you
I
could
say
say-
Cassidy's name instead? Will that
Or you could
confuse
say-
you? Will that just like
I'm
break your
pretty
circuits?
sure I'll notice.
And you've evolved. That's.
I feel relatively confident in my ability to discern your voices. Anyway, today's game
I don't know.
is called Expansion Match. I'm going to name an expansion, and as you know, these can be incredibly generic. And you name the game that it was released for.
Infinite War.
As always, we start. No, Infinite War is not on this list. As always, we're going to start easy and work our way towards harder ones. So, first one. This one I'll just treat as a practice round because it's already even been mentioned. Brood War.
Buzz? Oh wait, Brian?
Brian?
I don't like this.
Okay, say Buzz. I don't care. Say something.
You say Buzz, I'll say Ding. How's that?
Yeah, there you go.
What if my
Brian,
name was
you
Buzz?
haven't answered the question yet, Brian.
Yeah, you buzzed.
You just buzzed.
I know, and I said StarCraft.
Oh, okay. Did not hear you. All right.
Well,
So first for reals one. Okay, let's go. Lair of the Shadow Broker.
Oh, ding. That is Mass Effect 2.
That is Mass Effect 2. 1 point.
That's a really solid DLC.
Siege of Mirkwood.
Yeah.
Siege of Mirkwood. Oh, come on.
Is that...
I have a feeling I know what universe it belongs to, so I'm going to go ahead and say Ding or Buzz or whatever.
Okay. Ding
Is
Buzz.
that Shadow of Mordor?
No, I'm sorry. No.
Oh, never mind.
Is that Dragon Age Inquisition?
No, not Dragon Age. Brian, you were along the right track. It's Lord of the Rings Online.
Oh, see,
Okay.
I think I played that for like 20 seconds and I deleted it.
I just thought it might give it away because it's a very Lord of the Ringsy sounding name.
Yeah,
Mirkwood is where the elves live, or one of the places the elves live. In fact, it's where Thranduil lives, and that's where Legolas comes from.
Did you Wikipedia that, or you just
No.
Okay.
Is it really?
Like, no, I know it.
Wow.
I knew it.
You pulled out the power nerd there.
You should be
like
like,
giving you
if you're still surprised at how
sympathy
sad and
point.
pathetic I am when it comes to this stuff.
I didn't know Lord of the Rings was a thing. Yeah, that's news to me. All right. Next up, Overdose. Overdose.
Oh. Buzz?
Sure, Brian.
Serious Sam?
No, not Serious Sam.
All right.
Sorry.
I got nothing.
These are going to get real hard, by the way.
Oh. I think I know it, but I've already used my turn, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm gonna wager a guess. I'm gonna say like some. Damn, I don't know. I got no idea.
Okay, that's fine.
Can
Brian,
I guess what it was,
your,
even
what
though it's
was
not
your
worth points?
second guess? Not worth points, but what was
Painkiller?
it is Painkiller. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Little on the nose.
Yeah, that's an obscure one.
Shadows of Undrintide.
What?
I told you these get real generic. Just something fantasy world.
This sounds like a Neverwinter type thing.
Do you want to buzz? Are you buzzing?
No, I'm dinging. I'll ding.
Okay.
That sounds like. Is it Neverwinter? What
It,
is Neverwinter?
Neverwinter Nights. I'll say that counts.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's good enough. Let's just
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounded like something vaguely D&D.
So, all right, next. Tribes of the East. The most generic one that I have. Tribes of the East.
Oh.
I don't even know if I want to answer this one. Like,
Nope.
that's.
Nope, you don't want to. No guesses? All right. It's Heroes of Might and Magic 5.
Oh, okay.
I did mention that they'd get harder.
The game that I totally played?
Brian, there's no way you can come back and win at this point, but you can make it a closer match, because right
Wait
now
a minute, I thought we were... No, you're right, okay.
This one
I'm not keeping track
is
of anything that's happening. Like, look, they're still working. See, they've been diligently working this whole time, so I've been checking on them.
You better be paying that female the same amount as the other guys. That's all I'm saying.
I pay them more, actually. I pay
There's
them
two
more.
ladies there, yeah. It's Magnolia and Adia.
They're doing the hardest work, honestly, so...
That's true. All right. This last one is not as generic, but it's also kind of funny, and I'll get into why once we have the answer. The Next Harvest. The Next Harvest.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'm going to buzz in anyway. I'm going to say Farming Simulator because that sounds about right.
Oh, Lord.
Nope, not Farming Simulator.
Call. I don't know. I'm gonna throw a random one. Say. I'm gonna say SimCity 4 because that's the
City
first
4.
game
No,
that came to
I'm
my
sorry,
mind.
it's not SimCity 4. Here's what's funny about this one. It does sound like it'd be a farming game. It's Cabela's Big Game Hunter 3.
Oh, come.
As if.
I didn't know they made expansions for those.
As if deer
know
are
there
a
was-
harvest.
Well, no, that makes sense. Like that's a term you use in hunting, but like yeah, I
don't
had
know.
no idea that even happened.
I was picturing bears sprouting out of the ground and just picking them.
Well, that's where they come from.
Putting them in
Right?
your bear basket.
So yeah, the next I didn't know they made expansions either. I looked up games with
Are
expansions.
they still making Cabela's games? I gotta Google this real quick.
I think so. They sell pretty well.
Yeah, it's always like the $30, $20, $30 thing.
There's an audience for him. Like I have, my father-in-law loves those things, and so like we make sure that we get him whatever the most recent one is that he can run.
So yeah,
yeah,
apparently it still exists. Wasn't there was some gimmick they were going to try out recently, and I don't remember what it was.
Well, they did like the ones that were like more survival games where it's like you're not necessarily hunting, you're more trying to survive, and so like these really scary animals come after you. It's like this weird like storyline. Like one of them had like an actual like really deep kind of like storyline of betrayal and stuff like that. I don't know.
In my haste to see if they were still making Cabela's games, I accidentally closed out the window.
Far Cry : Cabela's.
Basically. Now you see that like Far Cry maybe is the new Cabela series.
Yeah.
And like I don't know where like Big Buck Hunter fits into all of this, but
let's see. I'm looking up Cabela's African Adventures came out last year in 2015. It looks like that was
You can take photos next to like dead lions.
Do you get like does he get like special points if he plays the dentist class?
I was just gonna say that. Do you get like Cecil DLC?
now with realistic angry letters.
I'm looking. Let's see. Right now on ActivisionHunts.com, they have Cabela's Big Game Hunter Pro Hunts, which it's bring home bigger game faster using advice from our pros, including Wade Middleton, Jim Shockey, and Ralph and Vicky. Cian Ciarulo, everybody's favorite.
Jim Shockey?
In the Cabela world.
I don't know who that is. But
and well, Wade Middleton is like a vaguely like Rooster Cogburn looking asshole here, so that's pretty cool.
That's probably the guy I'd listen to.
Yeah.
Here's my problem. Looking at this cover of Big Game Pro Hunt or whatever it is. They've got a bear on there, which is like, okay, bears are scary. They've got a deer on there, which is like, yeah, a deer could gore you. That's definitely a problem.
Yeah, they won't though. They just run.
Like moose could definitely hurt you, but they're pretty peaceful creatures.
Oh, most of them are. Most of them
go out of your way to get
kind of hang out. Having grown up in Maine, moose just kind of like chill.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really a lot. They're not very active. They don't like to move around a lot. I don't know. I feel kind of bad about that moose.
Yeah. It's all about what you can put on the wall, man.
I'm like 2 seconds away from making a Monty Python joke, and I'm holding back out of respect.
Thank you.
Barely holding back.
No, nothing against hunters. I just think it's funny. Like my dad and brothers are all hunters. Like I got no issues.
It's crazy. Like we don't think about it, but those games have a very, very large audience, and they are very loyal. They love them. Love them.
It's kind of like Farming Simulator. Like that thing comes out every year, and it's huge, especially in Europe, which I don't get it.
It's crazy because like Activision puts those out, and yeah, they don't make Call of Duty money off it, but I guarantee you they make more consistent money off it than pretty much any other platform or any other licenses they hold.
What do you do every year? Do you like put new vegetables in? Like what do you do every year? I don't.
For Farming Simulator?
It's like Harvest Moon without the romance options.
Enhanced soybean physics.
This year you can grow kumquats. Congratulations, everyone. I don't know.
Goal.
Farming Simulator 2017. I hope you like sorghum.
This Cabela screenshot says goal: shoot one aggressive bear, one brown bear, one aggressive brown bear, one aggressive black bear, and an aggressive mountain lion in 1 minute and 51 seconds. So
those are like real life.
you are taking down these animals with amazing precision. I don't think an actual hunter can do that.
That's some gunslinging.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That is impressive. All right. Anyway, that's the show.
Can you just preemptively put me down on the review calendar for Pro Hunt, Big Game, Go Shoot 'em, whatever?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll contact Activision about that. Why not? They never show it at E3.
I want to read your review. I will say that right now. I want to read that.
Look, I feel like this is an underserved audience. Who's reviewing Cabela games?
Nobody, because everybody will buy them. You know who buys those is grandmothers. Because you go to Walmart and those things are everywhere. They're just all over the game shelf. They're not even behind glass anymore because they can't get rid of them. They'll just give you a free one if you ask, I bet. And basically they walk and they're
the package is huge because it comes with its big orange gun.
Yeah, exactly. And especially I grew up in Wisconsin, so you go up there, everybody hunts. Grandma's gonna walk through and be like, "Oh, I bet they'd love to hunt big game in Pro Hunter 2015 or whatever." whatever. Like that's who buys those games. Like, it's just sort of like random people.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to grandmas though. Grandmas are great.
Yeah, hey, rock on. I love my grandmas.
They give you $1 for every year of your age. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
They buy me a Big Game Hunter. I will say I have actually played I forget which one it was. It was one of the Cabela's games, and it's kind of hilarious because the way that it's set up is almost like a platformer. Where you just run around a field and there's just magically like hordes of animals everywhere, and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go shoot a buffalo now, and like, oh, hey, here's a gazelle, or I don't know, it's weird. It's pretty great.
They should combine that in Farming Simulator.
Animals for you to shoot.
They should combine that. I want romance options in Farming Simulator now.
I want romance options in Cabela's.
Make the gritty, real-world version of Harvest.
Bring your dead bear back to your beloved as a sign.
You start off in the midst
like
of
a cat with a bird.
I'm into that.
All right, so that's the show. We're gonna move on to our closing, which is plugs. Quick plugs. Cassie, I know that you're working on various things, or have put up various things recently. So, is there anything in particular you want to highlight of yours this week?
No, like nothing like in particular. I mean, I'm working on a piece about game preservation. I'm pretty excited about.
I'm pretty excited about it too.
I'm not 100% sure when that's going to be out. I'm going to go to the Oakland Video Game Museum this weekend to talk to some of the curators over there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I don't have like a set date necessarily. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a long-term project.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a couple different sources involved in it so that we have a wide array of opinions. Otherwise, I host another podcast with a friend of mine. It's called Super Jump Radio, and it's basically this, except we talk about everything, so like comics and video games and movies and everything. So that's a lot of fun.
All right, nice. Brian.
I don't really have anything like comics. What's that?
I said academic papers or anything?
Not right now. We saw the Jungle Book. That was pretty good. Go see that.
Yeah,
I heard that was good. That surprises me.
Yeah.
Did it involve any big game?
A lot of it, but they take a different approach to it than Cabela's does.
They don't shoot it for one thing. I think.
Just with cameras.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I'm working on sort of a think piece about the Hearthstone standard mode. That's kind of my main thing right now. I feel like I've written a lot over the last week or two, so I'm not going to plug anything in particular. But for both Cassidy's pieces and my pieces, and lots of other things by lots of other people, go to Shack News. And since Asif isn't here, I'll just plug the things that he usually plugs. Mercury, for an ad-free Shack experience without being a dirty thief who uses ad block, or Shack Facts as a shortcut to get to our guide section. We bought that domain just because it's a funny pun. Anyway,
just as a fun aside, like I was actually talking to somebody about a week ago, and I told them that I wrote for Shack News, and they're like, "There's an entire website dedicated to news about Shaquille O'Neal."
That was one of our April Fool's jokes. That's one of my favorites.
He was like serious too, and so I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "No."
You write all about Shaq.
No, why would anybody read that?
Breaking news: he's tall.
Yeah. Still tall.
One year, I wish I could find the image that I made, but one year we made our April Fool's joke to have Shaquille O'Neal in all of our images at the top of the story.
That's amazing.
And there was one story that was about VR, and this was like 2 years ago or something. It was very early VR, but like I photoshopped a picture of the VR on his face, and it just happened to be a picture of him like having just made a basket or something like that. So he had like a ooh kind of face with like these VR goggles on. It's like my favorite thing that I photoshopped. I wish I could find it again.
It feels really shocked because he made a free throw, but
yeah, he just missed a free throw.
Early '90s basketball jokes. What?
He missed it by slightly less than before, and he was very excited about it.
I got really close that time, guys.
So, at any rate, this year's April Fool's joke obviously was Shark News, which I also like.
I have some fire stuff on Scottie Pippen, but I'll save it for later.
Save it for your '90s basketball players diss track.
Those Larry Bird jokes.
Get a brick wall behind me and be like, "What's the deal with Scottie Pippen?"
Oh Lord.
It plays real great in Chicago, though. Anyway, that's the show. We're going to make this nonsense stop. So thanks for listening. Go to shacknews.com. So for Cassidy Moser, I'm Steve Watts.
I'm Brian Carr.
and we'll see you on Chatty.